Hey, good day. We're glad to have you here today. And I'm really lucky today because I have another aspect of our police department to share with you today. And that is the mountain bike division, mountain bike patrol division. And we have Officer Leland with us today. And first, Officer, I'd like to welcome you to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on.
It's a pleasure. I have a lot of admiration for you guys. We'll get into the details of how it's like to be in the division on a mountain bike. But I always ask officers when they come here to describe a little bit about their background.
Well, I was born and raised in Woburn, Massachusetts, and I went to college in Florida, in Pensacola, Florida, where I met my wife down there, actually, and turns out she was from West Lebanon, New Hampshire.
Oh, okay. Yep. So that's, I was just wondering, how the heck do you get up
How do I
get
get here,
yeah.
Exactly. So after college graduation, we stayed down there for a couple of years. She got her master's degree, and we knew we wanted to be back up in this area. Nothing against Massachusetts, but I was interested in moving to a smaller area like this, and a nice, pretty area. So I initially didn't get into law enforcement right away. I worked at a local business up here for a couple of years, but I always had the passion for law enforcement.
Oh, that's nice.
After having my first child, I decided if I'm going to do it, I need to do it now.
Yeah.
So with my wife's support, I went ahead and got into law enforcement and was hired by Lebanon here.
Great. How long have you been in law enforcement here in Lebanon?
I've been here for about 4.5 years now.
Oh, good. Well, we really appreciate your service, and thank you for that.
Thank you.
Now, how in the world did you get on the bike?
It's strictly on a volunteer basis. They don't, assign anyone to it.
Yeah.
One of the big questions I get when I'm riding around on the bicycle, some people, first off, are very happy to see it, and they're, excited, and they say, boy, you're lucky to get to ride a bicycle around. Then the other half of the people are saying, what did you do to have to do this? Did you crash all the cars or something like that?
Is this a punishment detail or something they put you on the bike?
But no, it's strictly volunteer. I ride mountain bikes on my own. I enjoy mountain biking. I have some friends that I used to regularly go with, and that's what got me interested in this particular division of the department.
Well, good. Now, I think when I see you guys on the bike, I notice you have some equipment on that bike. You have some equipment on yourself. Yeah. Could you describe what gear you carry on that bike, on yourself and on the bike itself?
Absolutely. The bicycles we have are made by Fuji. They're specifically designed for police and security.
So they're just not going down to the bike store, buy a bike.
No, a lot of these companies, Fuji, as well as many of the other big name companies, produce actual bicycles strictly for law enforcement, designed around them. They have the bikes we use are hardtail bikes. They have front suspension, no rear suspension, which is good because we do a mix of riding on road and off road.
Okay.
We have the rail trails. We have different trail areas that we can go on. But also we patrol the streets quite a bit too. So that's a good all-around bike for that. They also are disc brake bicycles, which work much better in the rainy weather. They stop better. They work. They're a lot more functional than the traditional style brake. And we try to be out there even if it is a little rainy out. We try not to be fair weather riders. We try to get out and do our thing during the season.
Now, just speaking of seasons, then the bike patrol division, does there a certain period of time during the year that the division operates out there, or
there's no set protocol for it? I guess technically I could do it year round. Although equipment, weather conditions certainly play a role. There would be very few days that I could actually do it in the winter. Typically, we start in the spring, go right through the summer, into the late fall, until it gets to the point where it's just not feasible.
Yeah. Is there a particular track? And we're not going to let the bad guys know. But where do you go in the town around?
Well, the first thing I'll mention is that we actually still have cruisers. We don't leave from the police station.
Because I've seen you guys pack your bikes on.
Sure, we have a cruiser with a Thule bike rack on the back, and the idea is we can drive to a central location in the city. So I may park near City Hall, somewhere around the park area, and for example, when I'm on that side of town, I can patrol out along the rail trail. I like to do that. visit with the community out there, the walkers, the hikers, the bikers. And I can go as far as Riverside Drive out to the Route 4 area and back. I also patrol the park area, School Street neighborhoods. I like to hit a lot of the neighborhoods around town, patrol the back roads where a lot of times, we don't necessarily go down them quite often in cruisers. And I like to hit the areas that necessarily aren't necessarily the high crime, say, areas. Because I want to show our face in those areas too. Yeah.
It kind of reminds me, I grew up in an era where you actually had, even, in smaller towns, you had the officer on the beat. Actually, the person out there walking the beat. But here, you're on the beat in a sense, but you're also mobile.
Exactly.
Because you can move. And you can move rather quickly.
Yep.
Is that, do you find that kind of, I wonder how that feels. I mean, does that feel like community policing, that you're right there with people more personally versus being in the cruiser, having to come to scenes, and how's that feel? But you do both, so.
Yeah, absolutely.
I differences?
I enjoy the fact that I can be face-to-face with people a lot more. We're a lot more approachable on the bicycle than, say, in the cruiser. It can be intimidating, seeing an officer sitting in a cruiser somewhere. It could be intimidating for the public to walk up, even if they have a simple question that might maybe think, I don't want to bother them. Or I have people coming up to me left and right, which I enjoy because it gets it allows me to really get to know the public, and vice versa. It allows them to get to know the officers a lot better. So I enjoy that public
building
interaction.
that connection, that relationship between our officers and our citizens.
Sure, and these are the people that may give me a tip on things that otherwise we wouldn't have known about, but they felt comfortable to approach me.
Yeah,
so,
that's nice.
Yeah.
I think everyone's probably interested in what kind of in terms of activities you found yourself or your other officers found within the division. What are some illustrations of the kind of things you might encounter? Well,
I can break it down into two sections. I can talk about the community aspect of it. I get involved in a lot of different outreaches. There's a lot of summer camps. And I'll ride bikes with kids on certain days of the week. And we also have helmets that the Lebanon Police Department provides to children that may not have the funds or the means to get a helmet. So
there's a helmet program.
There's a helmet program. We give out free helmets to kids, and also we do bike registrations. We do bike rodeos. Just promote safety to children. The other aspect of it, people always ask me, do you stop cars on that thing?
Yeah.
And yes, from time to time, I try to enforce the traffic laws on a bicycle. And also, we also use the bike not only during the daytime, but we use it in the evenings and over the midnight shift. I can give you one example of a situation that occurred on a midnight shift. We can be real stealthy with the bike. We can slide into areas where people don't even realize we're there. When you see a police car come in, everybody says there's a cop, there's a cop. People don't see it often on the bicycle. There's been situations where I've been pedaling down a road and I've actually heard a domestic fight going on in a house. You can hear a lot when you don't have your cruiser windows up and your radio going.
Closer to the ground.
A lot closer to the ground. You can hear
to the house.
Yeah, you can hear what's going on. So I was able to intervene in that and take care of that situation. But yes, there are situations too where I've actually stopped vehicles, motorcycles, different things like that on the bike. So just because I'm on a bicycle doesn't mean I can't be an effective patrol officer in that sense.
Yeah, that's really interesting. That's really interesting. If you had to summarize in terms of advantages and then disadvantages, what are the disadvantages first, and then what are the advantages?
Well, the disadvantage obviously is the fact that I cannot necessarily get to the other side of town as quick as if I was in a regular patrol car. Certain situations when I'm in a certain area, I can get there sometimes just as quick if it's a local area, a local call that I'm going to, just for the fact that I can move around quickly on a bicycle. But again, the disadvantage is if I'm, say, on the far end of town and on the other end of town an emergency comes in, I'm going to be working hard to get there, and it'll take me longer than if I'm in a regular patrol car.
Is there any vulnerability for the bike officers in terms of being on a bicycle And yet, and then having bad actors. It seems to me that you might be. You have certain positions you do as an officer in dealing with situations.
The thing a lot of people don't realize is me and the other bicycle officers, we don't just hop on the bike and go. We've actually gone through training.
Okay.
I personally went to the Vermont Police Academy and LEBA, L-E-B-A, Law Enforcement Bicycle Association. I took a class through them. It's a week-long course, and they teach police tactics using bicycles. And a lot of people say, didn't you learn to ride a bike when you were a kid? Well, I did, but there's a lot of aspects that we learn that adapt to police work. For example, at one point during the academy class, we had to go through a shooting range. And what they do is they started us at the bottom of a very steep hill. If anyone's ever been to the Vermont Academy, they know it's on top of a big hill.
Oh, gosh.
And we have to, we do a scenario where there's an officer down, shots have been fired, and we have to pedal up this steep hill and get there and still be able to function as an officer when we get there. At the top of the hill, you go into a firing course. So the big aspect for me is I have to make sure nowadays that I leave enough in my tank for when I get to a call, I can still do my functions as an officer. You have to pace
yourself. And physical fitness I know is important for all the officers and everywhere, but it seems like you'd really have to be physically fit and able to do these things, especially with the kind of terrain we have. Yeah, that's good. Now, advantages from your perspective, you mentioned probably several, but let's just maybe summarize some of the advantages. Why is it important for Lebanon to have a mountain bike patrol division?
Well, the first major one I can think of is the cost. When I'm on the bike, I'm not burning fuel in a car. And on an average, I can save a quarter tank, a half a tank a shift if I'm on the bike rather than the car. And with the cost of gas the way things are now, it's a lot more efficient for me to be on the bike. Police agencies have been using bikes even back before they even had cars. It's been something that's always been used. So there's the one big benefit is the financial benefit of me being on the bike. The other benefit is, like I mentioned before, I'm face-to-face with the community. I get a lot more positive community contacts with people. And I'm a lot more approachable when I'm on the bike.
That's great. You see, where do you see the future going with these mountain bike divisions? You see that other towns are going to get them. You see, in Lebanon, more applications or different applications. So any technology evolving in relation to bikes? This technology is always doing wild things.
Yeah, the bikes are always getting a little nicer. I can speak for our department in that I know there are several other people within our department, 4 or 5 people that are interested in doing this as well. The difficult part we're having now is the Vermont Academy, the instructor that was there moved out west. And so we're looking for an instructor. We don't just want to put someone on a bike and we know they can ride a bicycle, but we want them to have that training and make sure they're physically fit and also trained properly in how to handle situations, because, as I mentioned, it is different when you're on a bicycle going to a call than when you're in a cruiser.
Well, that's good. You had mentioned that even it goes back a long ways. As you're saying it, just flashed in front of my mind that I remember some Buster Keaton movies where he was engaged in some Buster Keaton type interesting body language, and he was being chased by officers with those the bicycle the police helmets, and they're on bicycles. So it goes back. But with our bikes, what I have a feeling when I look at them, they look it looks very modernistic. It looks very sleek. It's reassuring. There's a comfort level with it. I'm not. The difference between a cruiser and a bike seems obvious, and the closeness to the community, more of our closeness to the community, getting more information, giving more information. So it's really wonderful. It looks very strong too. So it looks strong. You guys looking good.
Thank you.
So I want to appreciate your time today coming on the show. And that's tell everybody out there, when you see our officers on the bike, please take some time to talk with them. They're good conversationalists, and they're always interested to talk to citizens. And thanks to them, we're doing a lot of nice things in doing our policing closer to the ground. Thank you. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time. Thank you, Adam.
Thank you.
Welcome to the second segment. That was really nice seeing that officer. That officer is a really squared away person. So it's good to have him out there on the bike helping us, and it's so reassuring if you have children and or if you're, you feel a little vulnerable. This is the kind of person you should step up and talk to and visit. If you have something to share with them. In our next segment here, I have been in a reflective mood because I have been at the International City Managers Association meeting. This is the annual thing. This is internationally. It was held this year in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. So when I do these things, it's a great process of rejuvenating ideas about what we're all about in a city, why we need to serve our citizens better, how we could do it. And I just kind of, when I go to these things, they're just constant workshops in 5 concurrent tracks, and I try to pick out ones that I think fit Lebanon the best. And this is the first year with Lebanon. I've gone to them many years now. Each year I come back with a few things that I try to bring back to a local community where I'm lucky enough to be a manager at. Here in Lebanon, I think we could put some of these ideas together. First of all, I'd like to say that the Lebanon community and all the things you think about here in Lebanon, you're very, very much on the crest of the wave. We are facing these issues head on. And these issues that we have today are the issues of the world, and they're the issues of the United States, and the issues of New Hampshire, and the issues of Lebanon. So I guess it's a little bit reassuring. So sometimes we get so egocentric and ecocentric that we look at ourselves and just think of only what our own culture's going and where we're going. But in the bigger sense, we're actually part of a great big whole. I always bring back with me kind of the Bible of the International City Manager Association. And I thought I'd just reflect on some of these things just to share, because I always said if you're going to go anywhere for training, professional development, it's only as good as when you come back and you share with people about what you heard there. And some of it is just a part of the reassuring things. There was one segment, and I liked it. There's this good about that we have to engage a lot of different types of people and from different places in our economy and different places in our culture in conversing with each other and having these conversations. This Lebanon needs to be a place of conversations where we take from every element here in Lebanon and bring it together. And one of the presenters talked about a stew. And building a stew. I mean, if your parents are like my parents, they had stew. So they didn't take simply, you have boiled potatoes. They took and you mixed and matched all the vegetables and the onions and the savory sauces and the spices and little pieces of really tasty meat. And really what you made is a tasty stew. And that's what we need to do in a healthy community. We need to bring all these elements together to make a tasty stew. And that's what we need to do in Lebanon. We need to bring everybody together, and we need to have this conversation. I heard the person who basically was a savior for Harley Davidson's motorcycles. The Milwaukee brought Harley Davidson out because Harley Davidson was the place of his corporate headquarters was Milwaukee, and they were a principal sponsor. And they brought in the person who started it. He's now retired, but he came forward. And he sat and visited with it about what makes a successful organization. And what he said was, first of all, openness, the sharing of ideas. And this is part of, when we have behavior that isn't civil. That's just the contrary to openness. We need to feel enough trust in each other to have open conversations in our communities. And that's really what he said in terms of organization. We need to ride together. And ride together means that we're all in this together. We're all having to tighten our belts. We're all having to live within our means. We all have less resources to do what we do. So we need to add value to everything we do. And he talked about that. And we need to communicate. He always talked about that at Harley Davidson. The idea of an organization is you need to ride with your customer. And here, what we need to do is we need to really connect with the citizens so that the governance systems which are in the communities are not a disconnect with the citizens. They have to be hand in glove and part of each other. Next, we talked to who was really another entrepreneurial spirit who brought organizational thinking to Medtronics. And this person now is teaching, retired, been around a great many years. And he talked about the people coming together and celebrating success, communities who celebrate success. And he's now teaching at Harvard. And that's important. You know, this last summer we celebrated Patriot Day. The flag came. It was really wonderful on the 4th of July, the Patriot flag. There's celebrations throughout the year in Lebanon. And that's important that we celebrate together and do things together. Another speaker talked about the fact of the cycles that we're under. Our whole world seems to be in varying cycles. And this person chose to characterize it as seasonal, so seasons, whether it's fall, whether it's summer, whether it's spring, whether it's winter. This decade seems to be a decade that really is a decade of winter. And in winter, this decade the last time this occurred was during World War II. And during World War II, all the people had to gather together. It was a really survivalist kind of situation where people were backs against the wall, and the way to get together, the way to deal with the war and to wage that war, and as the greatest generations did, was simply pull together. All the kinds of things they did. You can recall them. People gathering scraps metal together, people gathering recyclables together, people pulling together, people acting as voluntary civil workers to protect the civil defense, the wardens, and everybody pulled. The women went into the factories. They went in. They made everything from boats to spaghetti, and those were my people that raised me, grandparents who were in that war, and my father in that war. That was the last winter we had, because the spring came with the baby boomers. Everything was bright and new. There was a new awakening. And that followed in that era of the 40. Even it began as early as the end of the war, when it became very clear that we were going to win that war in the 44, 45, 43, but actually bloomed in 46, the year I was born. And that was a spring awakening where people were positive and they're ready to move forward. We're in a season of winter. We were just preceded this by fall. What happened in the fall was the 90s and the first decade in this last 10 years, where things really came to a reckoning. The economy met its match. We had spent too much. We had borrowed too much. We had not paid enough attention to the world around us, and we found in the consequences. And these consequences caused us to feel all types of pressure, internationally, monetarily, financially, housing, all that. And now that is brought on the winter, where we're having a difficult time in recovery and getting enough good, livable jobs in order to get in the proper balance of development and environmental protection, where we're facing an economy that's really in a recession. It doesn't appear to come out of it. This winter, in the seminar in which I was in with economists and with sociologists, and with, of course, other city managers, was clear that this is going to be the decade-long kind of phenomena. And so the question for us is what to do during winter. And what you did, I remember and recall that you prepared things. I remember and recall that people would gather together. There was warmth in being together, and there would be long conversations. There would make what we have go around, and it was fairly distributed. But there was a lot of good conversation about making the plans for the awakening, the spring, and so that's where cities are seeing themselves at right now. And we're in the winter. It's a matter of survival. It's a matter of living bringing our resources in line with our revenues. to bringing our services in line. This is not an easy time, but these things that you do in winter to survive, you have to do. And I think out of that is unity. You know, if you've ever been caught in a cold snowstorm, and if you're out there and you're feeling you're alone, if you went out and you were out there for whatever reason you might be, in maybe a forest or maybe even in a prairie, and you're out there and it was cold and you were in a very heavy snowstorm, and you're isolated and apart and separate, you're decentralized basically on your own, you're siloed up. Is that the way to survive? No. Oftentimes, the way to survive is to try to collect yourself, to stay within the group, to come up with the best ideas for survival. For some of you might have played the survival exercise, which is taking all the ways of surviving. Each person, each part of the society contribute the ideas of how to do this. And the result of that culmination of these many different ideas from these many different diverse people produce a situation where you have synergy. And synergy is what the city needs. And that was the message of the conference. It was all about fresh ideas that you have to be gathering in the heart of winter when it is a very difficult situation. And out of this, if we can do this decade, then we'll come out of it. And everything that we have right now, which are the demographic challenges and the financial challenges and the housing challenges and the transportation challenges, we can meet them. We can make them work. We can find new ideas, but we have to do it together. That was that whole conference. And in summary, that's just what it's about. Now, we're going to start doing some things in Lebanon as part of this concept. One of the things I'm real proud about right now, it's going to happen. And this Monday, here on September 26th, you will hear it afterwards, but you will have him on the show. We have selected a new planning and zoning director for the city of Lebanon. And I wanted to share with you a little today about the background. His name is Andrew Gaspre. And Andrew is a graduate of the University of Michigan, where he got his undergrad with a BS in engineering and a BA in linguistics. He happens to speak 3 languages fluently, and he has a couple other languages he can speak for business purposes. He then got his PhD in engineering from a university in France. He got a postdoctorate, a master's in community planning from the University of Cincinnati. Andrew has been in the business of planning for 20 years here. He's really at the height of his prowess. I think he's ready for us. We're certainly ready for him. He has been in the private sector. He's a general manager of the Fontaine Engineering, and he's also been the director of a nonprofit, Sustainable West Virginia, where he was the director of bringing sustainability to communities. He's got a lot of great work. He was a director of planning and zoning in Massachusetts, in Winchendon, Massachusetts. I probably mispronounced that. And there he put together their master plan and their zoning ordinance. We're really pleased about that. The idea of a community is you want to bring talent to the community. We want talent in the public sector. We also want talent in the private sector and, of course, the nonprofit sector. And I think we want to be, in the parlance of one of the seminars I went to, we want to be a cool community. We are a cool community. We want everyone to know that we're a cool community. Because anymore, people don't choose, I will go to there because this is the job, this job is everything. No, the world is starting to change. People have multiple jobs. What they will go for is go for a community that has a lot of quality. And Lebanon is one of those cool communities. So that's what we're about. We're going to make sure everyone knows that we are in a very cool community. That's Lebanon in Depth today. I hope you enjoyed it. I enjoyed meeting the officer, and I am enjoying the heck out of having our new planning and zoning director. Thank you very much.